Considering the end of Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, I don't think we'll be seeing Catnap again anytime soon, at least not alive. What's interesting though is how Catnap dedicated his whole life to the prototype, only to fall victim to the very god he worshipped. So why did the prototype kill Catnap? Well, to understand why this happened, we need to look at the events that led up to it. As we all know by now, Theodore Grambel is the child that turned into Catnap. As a troubled orphan, Theodore spent most of his time at home sweet home as sort of a recluse. It's said that he had juvenile behaviors, often lying with no care to anyone around him, always keeping to himself. He didn't have any friends, although Theodore did in fact have an imaginary friend. At least that is what the staff thought. This imaginary friend would encourage Theodore to vandalize and obstruct Playtime Co. This caused the staff to reprimand Theodore. Of course, this imaginary friend was in fact the prototype. Now, why would the prototype choose Theodore as a friend over all of the other children? Well, a damaged mind is very easy to manipulate, and the prototype took advantage of this. One day, the prototype instructs Theodore to open a maintenance store in the Playcare, using one of the green grab pack cans that he had stolen. With guidance from the prototype, Theodore attempted to open the door, although it required 2 people. It's assumed that this was with intentions of allowing the orphans to escape the Playcare. However, because Theodore was so young and had very little understanding of how to operate the grab pack, he ended up getting electrocuted by it and needed medical attention. At this moment, the prototype seemed to have a change of heart. He grabbed Theodore and carried him to the scientists. By helping Theodore, he lost his chance to escape. But in that moment, the prototype realized something. He noticed that Theodore was willing to injure himself to help him escape. The prototype had his first follower. So the prototype had felt some compassion and decided to help Theodore. Now, despite this accident, the antics prompted by the prototype continued, leading to Theodore becoming a candidate to possess the bigger body's version of Catnap. The staff wanted to give him a second chance, a chance at redemption. At least that's what they told him. Catnap was thought to be made to simply watch over Home Sweet Home, become friends with the children, and help them feel calm. Although it's not that simple. He was specifically designed to aid Playtime Co. in the practice of abducting select children from the Playcare for human experimentation, presumably as they slept so they would not cause attention. This is where the red gas comes in, to aid in putting the orphans to sleep. Playcare would hold child experiments captive and prevent them from escaping after beating the game station with a near perfect score. This means the smartest children were taken and experimented on. Soon after the creation of Catnap, multiple employees gave their evaluation of him. Every single employee came to the conclusion that the only real flaw of Catnap was his connection to the prototype. They stated that Catnap would act like a pet to the prototype. Whenever Catnap was in the same room as him, he followed him around like a puppy, and the prototype didn't mind, almost as if he encouraged it. This eventually escalated into Catnap worshipping the prototype as a god, and even starting a primitive religion with the prototype at its center. More on this later on. Following the events of Chapter 2, Catnap finds us in the train wreckage. Destined to get the attention of the prototype, he drags us and throws us into the trash compactor. This was Catnap throwing us to the prototype, thinking we were dead. Catnap was feeding his master. The second encounter with Catnap is inside of Home Sweet Home. We unknowingly walk into the red smoke. We are quickly sent into a hallucinogenic state, making our way through a maze-like version of Home Sweet Home. Once we get to the final room, we find a tape called Welcome to Playtime. This tape slowly begins to explain our current situation. Suddenly, a nightmarish version of Huggy Wuggy jumps from the screen and attacks us. We then wake up from this hallucination. This version of Huggy Wuggy is thought to be Catnap, as he is able to manipulate our hallucinations. From this point on, Catnap teases himself in a non-threatening way, showing us himself by crossing hallways and different areas. This is Catnap stalking his prey. Just like Ollie tells us, Catnap lurks in the shadows, waiting until your weakest moment before he strikes. Catnap lives for the hunt. This is with intentions of stopping anyone that opposes the prototype. Next, we have our third encounter with Catnap. We come across a cavern filled with dead toys and bodies. We also see Catnap crawling from below the area and start praying to the statue of dead toys. This statue is a shrine for the prototype made by by Catnap. A shrine is a sacred or holy space dedicated to a specific person or hero where they are worshipped. Shrines contain idols, relics, or other objects associated with the figure being worshipped. And as we all know by now, Catnap worships the prototype. He is his god. Now, once we make it out of the playhouse, Ollie explains this to us. Just like I mentioned before, he talks about how there was an accident before Theodore turned into Catnap. He almost died, but the prototype saved his life, although giving up his freedom in the process, meaning he now has to serve the prototype for the rest of his life. In Catnap's eyes, the prototype is a superhero. He believes that the prototype has saved this place. This is why Catnap treats him like a god, killing anyone and everything that opposes him. Now, once we attempt to place the last battery to power the gas production zone, Catnap catches us off guard and chases us to the elevator. When this happens, Catnap releases the red smoke and it fills the area. His body distorts, and he does this on purpose. This is to make himself look more terrifying. It's to scare us even more. After taking the elevator, we find ourselves in a safe room. Here, we must survive hallucinations and close encounters with Catnap. After we do this, Catnap jumps down from the vent above, although we quickly fire the charged grab pack at him, ultimately electrocuting Catnap and setting him on fire. As he rolls around trying to extinguish the flames, the prototype drops his hand from the vent above. At first, Catnap cowers in fear. However, the prototype turns his hand over with his palm up. This was not an act of kindness. This was an act of desire. The prototype wanted Catnap's life. He knew Catnap's time was up. If Catnap could no longer serve, the prototype wanted his soul. Catnap was no longer strong enough on his own, so the prototype decided his fate, to become part of him, just like the rest of the dead toys. Catnap knew what he had to do. He came to his knees and offered his life to the prototype, sacrificing himself to his god for what he thinks is the greater good. This is why the prototype killed Catnap. Catnap failed to complete his job to serve the prototype and prevent us from stopping his plan. Because of this, Catnap was no longer needed. Now, before the video ends, I want to suggest something. With each chapter, it feels like we are being manipulated into killing the remaining toys that are still alive around the facility. Yes, this is to keep the gameplay interesting, but I feel there is more to it. It almost feels like we are unknowingly working with the prototype. I mean, think about it. With each chapter, almost every toy we run into ends up dying and becoming part of him. We even see PJ Pugapillar in Catnap's shrine. We can assume the prototype will take the toys from the shrine and add it to himself. Even at the end of chapter 3, Kissy Missy, presumably a good guy, ends up getting attacked. So now we can assume even she is dead. Who is next? Poppy? Ollie, or us? I'm not too sure, but it's just something to think about. Why do you guys think the prototype killed Catnap? Was it out of love or disappointment? I cannot wait to see what the prototype looks like, so chapter 4 cannot come soon enough. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you like horror game content like this, please consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to follow my Twitter at TerrifiedT. Thanks for watching.